Before I go any further, thank you, Jay, for the mention in your video this morning. And I've got to say, I admire you highly, your ability to get up at the crack of dawn to go swimming in this weather. You know, first thing in the morning, it's not warm anyway, to go swimming, let alone in what to me is almost deepest midwinter. But just a thought that occurred while I was watching your video, and thanks for the mention. I'm not, I talk about, here's the book. I put a reference in there where I talk about when at the time when I used to go to church, and I am very much into sports. So even though I don't swim it, the annuals, one year used to have annual swimming galas. So one year I was made team captain, and I turned up for, always on a Saturday. So I turned up, and someone from one of the opposing teams asked me if I'm swimming. Now, I don't swim. I don't do water in that kind of way, in the way that Jay does water. So I said no, and he said to me, thank goodness. So I actually mentioned that in the book. The reason why I've got the book here is because I got some royalties yesterday. So whoever went and downloaded it on Kindle or bought it, thank you very much. Right, so anyway, so in the book I mentioned that about how just turning up, if you've got a reputation, that can sort of just your present can defeat the opposition. So this person, I had no idea that I don't swim, but because I've got a reputation as someone who's sporty, he thought that if I'm in the competition, then it's gonna be disastrous for everybody else, because he assumed I was going to win. But I mean, I didn't come out and say, no, I don't swim, I don't like water. But I just thought that, you know, just, I'm going to come back to that in a bit when I talk about my experiences at the hospital yesterday. But yeah, so I go on in that passage to say how I admire people who can swim. I admire anybody who can do something that I can't do. And it's not that I'm boosting myself in saying this, but I think often in my experience, people have sort of, instead of giving me credit for what I do well, they would try to criticize me for something that, not necessarily that I don't do well, but, you know, just try and find fault. So I was thinking, what a wonderful world it would be if we could just praise one another where praise is due, and where necessary give constructive criticism where constructive criticism is due. So in Jay's video, he talked about some things that I posted on Facebook and videos I've made. So he mentioned about people putting their feet on seats. So I've got a mischievous sense of humor. So whenever I'm sitting on the bus of late, it's like a running theme. I snap the seat. I usually go to the back, because that's normally where there is seating available. So I go to the back. So I sit in the center, and there are 2 seats either side, and then 2 seats either side facing. So if there is someone sitting in the corner at the back, sometimes they will put their feet on the seat, or they won't put their feet on the seat. So I've been, surreptitiously snapping and posting on Facebook with comments. So I'm going to come back to that, because that's going to take up the bulk of the video, what I'm going to say. But so Jay actually mentioned that, and we talk about training. And I in the book, I actually talk about that, the root of unacceptable behavior, about people who put their feet on seat and so on. It's you know, you don't have to say specifically to a child, don't put your feet on seats. But if a child, teenager, adult is mindful of others, it would occur that somebody's going to sit there, so I'm not going to put my feet there. So my thought on people who put their feet on seats is that they are selfish and they don't have thought for others. So based on that, let's say I was looking for someone, say I was looking for a marriage partner, and I see a guy putting his feet on the seat, that I wouldn't need to investigate any further because that would tell me a lot about his character. So that's just one example. But anyway, Jay, I have ultimate respect for you going out in the morning, consistently in the cold, swimming. So big respects. Anyway, on to what I wanted to talk about. So I'm just going to start with one quick example. So here's my prop, bottle of Dettol. When the nurse who was attending my sister yesterday, she made reference. There were some things that I bought for my sister from the local chemist, and I mentioned that in another video going back a bit. And so she wanted, we Jamaicans, we know about Dettol for personal use, hygiene. So she wanted to know where she could get a big bottle from, similar to the one that my sister's got. My sister's got the size smaller to the one that I've got here. So, my sister's got difficulties speaking, so it's difficult to understand her. But it told me a lot about this nurse, the fact that she took the time to listen to her, to understand that she said, ask my sister, right? So she said, my sister said to her that I'm the one that got the Dettol, so when I come, she can ask me. So she asked me. Now, I got it. I'm not going to say where I got it from because everybody will want one. And we know what people are like with their panic buying. So I offered. So no, she lives a different way. She doesn't go in the direction where I got the Dettol from, or where the chemist is rather. So I volunteered, even though it was raining last night, I volunteered to get it for her. So she went and got me some money, and I popped down. I went out and bought it for her. So this would be interpreted two ways. I say some people give praise where praise is due. Some people criticize where criticism is where some people give praise where due. Some people criticize when they should be giving praise. So they take the cynical approach to a person's actions. So whenever I do things for people, I do it genuinely. I don't do anything for anybody in hope of getting something. Not just because I know that God sees all and rewards all, right? So I believe in doing things from the purity of your heart. So if I can't do it with purity, I'm not going to do it. Or if I do it, I'm going to say to God, I don't actually want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm doing it, but I'm doing it resentfully, but I'm honest about it. So it's still with purity. I don't want to do it, but I'm doing it under duress. Not so much a duress, because I don't do things that I don't want to do in that way, but I will do it in spite of the fact that I don't necessarily want to do it. So I'll give you an example of what I mean. One time my sister went to my mother for a long weekend, and I'm sitting at my sewing machine. I was busy working and it was raining outside. I remember it was a Friday night, and she asked me, she was a bit paranoid that she'd left her fridge door open. So she asked me if I could, this is in the evening, it's cold, it's wet, it's miserable, and it's the night where you don't want to go anywhere. So she asked if I could come to her place where I'm at now, and check if she'd left the fridge door open. So I didn't want to do it, but it was something that needed doing. So I picked myself up and I came and I checked, and the fridge door was closed. So, but the thing is, because she was concerned about it, even though she's all the way in Kent, it's not something that I would have asked her to do. I wouldn't ask anybody to do something like that for me. But that was the thing that she needed doing because she was concerned about it. So I came, I checked, I called her, I said that it's okay, and then I went back home and continued sewing. So that's one example of something that I would rather not do, but I did it anyway. But so in this instance, I went out and I bought the Dettol and I brought it back. So I got this one, this size, which is the size below this is actually, you get a lot less actually, but this is only £1 more expensive. So for her £5, she got 1 pence change for something that size. So, obviously she was grateful, this, that, the other, and so on. So because my job is to, with regards to my sister being in hospital, is to keep her positive and to keep, just only good energy. I said to her, because of what I've done for this nurse, she's going to go out of her way to give you a sort of like, what did I say to her? A better quality service. Not that the nurses should be, based on how they feel about the patient or the patient relative, based on what has been done for them. They shouldn't be given the treat. All right, so I'm going to dive out of that and come back to what I do. Let me show you some, 1 second. Right, look at this little, well, it's not little, this massive cushion here, right? So I made this yesterday. Oops. Right, so it doesn't matter who or what, who the cushion for is for, rather. That could have been for the Queen of England, or it could have been for the beggar on the street. They get the same standard of service, right? I only do one service. So I'm not going to take extra care because I'm doing it for the Queen of England. And, it's only for the beggar on the street, so it doesn't matter how I do it. You get the same standard. So this is pretty much where I was coming from. So my sisters indicated to me that some nurses are better than others. And I've said to her, it's because they bring the standard, whatever kind of person they are, that's the standard that they bring into the workplace. So it goes back to people putting their feet on the seat. You don't have to specifically tell a person, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. It is how you are as a person. So if you've got if your principles, or rather, if you're a very principled person, your principles will demand of you that you treat others equally, right? So I went and bought the Dettol for the nurse, not because it's something that I would have liked somebody to do for me, right? So I don't do unto others as I would have done unto me. I do unto others what I'm willing to do for them. I don't expect anybody to do anything for me because people have free will. So I bought that, but some cynical person would perhaps think, oh, she's just doing that because there's something in it for her. No, I did it because I could. But I also, in doing that, I also, because I see every situation as a teaching example. And also to boost my sister. I said to her that this nurse, based on the fact that I've done this for her, she will think more kindly upon my sister. She will treat her, if you like, give her the gold standard treatment, right? She'll be more attentive. But it shouldn't have to be like that. Everybody should get the gold standard treatment, providing they deserve it. Sometimes I will do things for people for less or even for free, but I will do it I will do it because they're not expecting it. I put myself out because they're not expecting it. But if somebody comes to me and they're just greedy and they're looking for something for nothing, they get nothing. Nothing is what they get. So so that's just something. It doesn't kill us to give praise where praise is due. To go to to go the extra mile as you know, in a situation where we can, um, you know, we we can make others have good experiences and learn from our own conduct to do likewise. You see, so it's a bit like with Jesus when he he went about doing good, and all he asked was that people go and emulate as you've seen me do. That's what you're supposed to do. So I go back to the thing. I did one video where I said about that we're not supposed to worship Jesus. He didn't ask us to worship him, and that's what he asks, is that we follow his example, right? So it's about setting examples. So like I said, I wanted to go back and talk about putting feet on seats, which was going to be the main thing that I was going to talk about. So I mentioned in one of the videos, I don't know if I did one or two on Sunday, but I know I definitely did one when I came back from visiting my sister. So I talked about the black man that I met on the bus and he was wearing a mask even though he was protesting and saying it's stupid and this and that and the other. So you'd have to go back and find that video if you wanted to sort of be briefed. So anyways, I'm coming back from the hospital. I'm sitting as I was at the back of the bus, and I'd already posted on Facebook because there was no one there, and I did, you know, comedy. I posted a picture where sorry, not picture, a video, and all the seats around me, there was no one, and I posted proper social distancing, you know, because like I said, that's my sense of humor. And then he came along, he recognized me sitting there at the back, and he came and he was just talking like he's such a fantastic person. So what I do is sometimes when I want information out of people, I ask them a question which doesn't relate to what I'm really asking them. So I wanted to know, because he's sitting there and he hates white people. I said that in the video on Sunday. He hates white people, so he's sitting on the bus and he's talking loudly and he's got his feet on the seat. So I took 2 pictures and I posted those on Facebook, and I said what I said. But he's sitting there and he's just absolutely trashing white people. And so the question I asked him was, you know, what job do you do? As though I'm making conversation, but I just wanted to see who he was as a person, because sometimes people who hate this country, who hate the UK, they are completely dependent on benefits. They're getting funded by the country, they're living in council accommodation, they're getting things paid for, and there's no gratitude there. So I wanted to know if he was one of those people, so I could point that back at him. But he said he's never worked for any white man. He didn't go into anything. He didn't tell me what he does. But I could make an assessment of him based on the fact that he had his feet on the seat. And in my Facebook post, I said that's an act of defiance. It's like, there's one guy on YouTube, I think he's Bishop Larry Gates, his name is. And his thing is that black people are being exploited for their unresolved trauma. Now, when you tell people that, people with victim mentality or people who think people owe them a favor, that it's because you're suffering trauma, or you tell them that it's because of, they will jump on that. But they will say, yeah, this is why I'm being treated unfairly, because in their mind they're being treated unfairly. But this guy was on the bus last night shooting his mouth off about white people. And as an example, when I got off the bus before him, and as I'm approaching the door to get off, there was an elderly white man standing there. And this guy started shouting at him, telling him not to look at me. No white man should look at her. Don't know this man from anywhere. I met him on the bus last week, and he was shooting his mouth. Sorry, not last week, last Sunday. He was shooting his mouth off because the driver asked me, "Where's my mask?" although he was wearing one, he doesn't agree with it. Like I said, the video's there. Well, comes out and says things like that. Now, had that been in reverse and that had been a white person, say it was a white person sitting at the back saying to a black man looking at a white woman getting off the bus, don't look, no white man, no black man should look, yeah, no black man should look at her. You would hear screams of racism, racism, racism. So I completely disagree with this trauma of black people, because if there is such a thing as trauma, why am I not traumatized? And people will say, oh, but you're different. Pile of garbage. It's nothing to do with difference, it's all to do with upbringing. I've never put my foot on the seat, or my feet on the seat of public transport. Why? Because I'm mindful that others would sit there. You know, that others, somebody's gonna come and sit there. I don't litter. Why? Because somebody's got to pick that up. I've heard people say, oh, but road sweepers wouldn't have a job if they didn't have anything to pick up. Right, so people will come up with all sorts of excuses for their bad behavior, or to excuse other people's bad behavior. So I did another video the other day where I talked about the guy on Facebook where he said there are other things in the world that you could be talking about, and he'd rather sit on a dirty seat than be mugged, etc., etc. And I suspected that it's because he himself has in the past, or does put his feet on the seats of public transport now. And he did admit that he can't say he's never done it. I can say I've never done it. Right, so the whole point of the matter is, there are people out there wondering about doing things that are not acceptable, screaming racism, for example. And I say that as a black person because I only have good experiences when I go out. When I do have bad experiences, I would say they are spiritual. I would say it's the devil sending people to pick at me, to make me have a bad day, so he can slowly dismantle me. It's like somebody disabling you, knocking you out, so that they can come and steal the goods from your house and so on. It's the same principle. So I said I was going to talk about just things that happened yesterday, and I wanted to revisit the Asian woman in the bed opposite my sister. When I went to the hospital yesterday, I said I was gonna go in and I was gonna intimidate the hell out of her. There was no need for me to do that. It was, in fact, I had to ask my sister, is that the same woman from yesterday? Because this time she was not hiding under the sheet. She didn't have a mask on. She was acting in a different manner. But I would say that had something to do with the way that I conducted myself. Because when I walk in like I'm the baddest guy, the baddest gunman in the West. I'm not going to go political correct because they didn't have any gun women in those days as far as I'm aware. So the baddest gunman in the West, I walk in when I want to sort of make my presence felt, when I'm in a no-nonsense frame of mind. So, so there's nothing to report on her. She was just in her bed minding her own business. And she had a visitor, so that was her. There's absolutely nothing to report. There was nothing coming towards me from her. She's in her place. So that was that. But there was one other thing that I was going to talk about, if I can remember. I'll come back to it if I can. Yeah, so pretty much, I can remember now. So I'm not supposed to be here right now, as I said. I'm supposed to be elsewhere today. But I'm not going to go into it. It's to do with my sister. But what I did yesterday, because I like to work to my own standards, right? Because my standards are higher than other people's standards. And people will argue with me on that, right? But I don't like my time being wasted, and I don't like to waste my own time. So what I did was, where I'm supposed to be today in the morning, I called them, right? Because the people at the hospital were supposed to let me know. The doctor was supposed to let me know. When I was there yesterday, one of the nurses said to me that she needed to speak to me as regards. But I said to her, I made a phone call. So I called ahead, I introduced myself, and I was told that, all right, basically, my sister needs to go to a different hospital today to get treatment, stroke examined, but this hospital, when I phoned them yesterday, because I wanted to check, I didn't want to turn up, or basically I wanted to be prepared, so I knew what I'm doing. So I called them, and they said that they're not allowing people to come in from outside. And they said they're surprised. I explained to them that my sister would perhaps need my assistance to get across what she's trying to say, because you can't understand her when she's speaking. So they said, the person I spoke to, a very nice woman, she said to me that she's surprised that they said that, who told me that I could come. And I said, they did. I said, it's just because of my sister's circumstances, perhaps you'd make an exception. But she went on to tell me that my sister would be fine, because there would be people there to offer support, and whatever she needs, people would be there, and they're very patient and so on. So with that in mind, I went to the hospital to see my sister, but I didn't actually mention that I'd already called ahead, because I wanted to see what information the hospital would provide me with. So at this time, it was either going to be a phone call at some point last night, or at some point in the morning. So imagine if I hadn't called the hospital, the other hospital, yesterday. I would have been, if I'm that type of person, I would have got myself organized and traveled to the hospital to be told, oh, you can't come in. Or I would have been sitting here waiting for the hospital to call me and not receive the call, because by now I should have received the call. So again, this is other people's standards. So in life, you don't have to be frustrated. You can you can intercept. Is that the correct word? You can you can intercept, or you can know other people's standards, and work against them for the good, if that makes sense. So instead of waiting on them to do what they're doing in their way, you do what you do in your way, and this way you're not in a situation where your time is wasted and you're going to be expressing frustration or anything like that. So I think that's pretty much, I've said a lot here, but my bottom line, I want to go back to that nurse that I bought the Dettol for yesterday. As I said, some people would look at it like, oh, you're just trying to curry favor. You're just trying to if you like, get in someone's good books. I don't try to get in anybody's good books, because I don't need to. But I do think that if you're in a situation and it's not going to kill you to be helpful, then you can be. And at the same time, in not everybody is going to have show gratitude, because I've done a lot for people in the past, and it's like not so much that you get slapped in the face or ever, but there's no gratitude. But anyway, like I said, God sees all, and he rewards and he punishes according. So, or rather, you get back what you deserve from life. So I just think in my sister's situation now with this nurse, she's got somebody who will look out for her, because we had a conversation as well about other things, where she was telling me about the ingratitude of her relatives in Jamaica. Like she was saying, she sent some stuff out. She sent barrel loads of stuff, 4 barrels I think she sent, and one relative instead of distributing it, she took everything and opened a shop. So that's the kind of that type of greedy person that you're dealing with. So I don't know, we don't have to sort of be the kind of people who are all take or have expectations. And I'm afraid to say that with the racism thing, it isn't, when you people say, like, with some people who are open will come out and say that black people are like infants. They're not allowed to take responsibility for their actions. So They can commit crimes, they can do things, they can do that, and the excuse will be, oh, it's because they're deprived, it's because the police brutality, it's because of this, that, and the other. But bottom line, we all make choices. I threw in a line at the end of yesterday's videos where I said I went the knife crime video. I threw in a line at the end. Sometimes I'm being very, I wouldn't say sarcastic as such, but it's just my sense of humor, where I said, if I didn't have sense, I would have used the knife in a public place and tried to say, oh, but this is for my sister who's in hospital, and I was only doing good deeds, and now look, the police have arrested me because I had a knife, and it's because. So people make excuses in that way, because I was doing a good thing and I got caught. Yeah, but you had a knife, right? So you know what I mean? That's just the example I'm giving. So common sense, because I have a brain that works, told me that use a knife discreetly to do what you need to do. Because for me, it was, I took the knife with me because I wanted to save time. Rather than coming back here, peeling the ginger and then going back, I took the knife so I could peel the ginger en route. So it is things like that. So people would make an excuse, or if I'd got caught with it, I would have been, and I have got victim mentality, I would have been screaming, it's not fair, because I was doing a good deed and this and that and the other. It doesn't matter. The fact is, the law says you shouldn't be carrying a knife. You got caught carrying a knife, you got caught carrying a knife, end of. So it's I guess what I'm saying here at the end, because I'm winding up now, is that if we can take responsibility for our outcomes, we choose to do an action, we take responsibility, then that's fair enough. So to use an example, when I used to go to the gym at 6:30 in the morning, and for me, I had my day worked out so that I'd go to the gym, I'd come home and sleep, and then I'd work. And I would do that 3 times in the week, because you can't sort of, you can't, like I would do night shifts as well, you can't do a night shift every night and sort of try to, have that, use your day in that kind of way where you're sort of maximizing it to the point of, sometimes I just work, I do a 24-hour shift and just leave straight from, like, go to the gym, sleep, work, and then go to the gym. I've been known to do things like that, but you've got to know what your breaking point is. So for me, I remember one time I forgot to take my lemon with me. I use lemon juice on my hair, on my skin, whatever. I forgot to take the lemon, so common sense, there's a Sainsbury's right as I get off the tram. So I popped in, got a lemon, and I needed to, make an incision in it so I could get the juice out. So common sense said, use your key. So thereafter, I didn't need to worry about whether I got my lemon or anything, because I knew that I could always use the key to just pop into the supermarket, get a lemon, puncture it, and do that. So you learn to use your initiative in certain ways. But if you keep making excuses for people, they never learn, they never grow. So going back to what I was saying with regards to sewing, right? This is going to be my longest video ever, I think. But sort of like, because my time was, everything was sort of scheduled, like, right, I need to make X amount of cushions, whatever I'm doing, by such and such a time, this is my deadline. So on a couple of occasions, I neglected to take my purse because I was in a rush. But as I said, sometimes God reminds me, and He had in the past reminded me, don't forget your purse, don't forget your swimming gear for the sauna, blah blah blah. And so on the times when I neglected to take my purse, I remember specifically one morning I said, I got to the tram stop and I thought, well, God didn't remind me, so if I get caught, I get caught, and I will confess. And what happened? I got caught and I confessed. But I told them the absolute truth. And I said, I realized when I got to the tram stop that I didn't have my purse. So obviously I couldn't tap in, tap out to pay. And if I'd gone home, I would have missed that tram. and even though it's only 15 minutes, that 15 minutes would have disrupted my schedule for the day. So I said to the inspectors, I'm willing to pay the fine because this is the option. So because I told them the truth, they let me off. They didn't fine me, right? And that's happened to me on 2 occasions. When you speak to authorities, so I'm thinking in terms of the police, when you don't try to play the victim, or you try to tell a lie, but you just tell them exactly what it is as it is. I'll give another example, even though this is sort of like coming up to 36 minutes now, it doesn't matter. Another time I dropped my pass. I was going to a church disco, and which required I get a bus and the underground, and then underground and bus back. And I managed to travel to and back from the dance for free, because when I got on the bus, I explained to the bus driver that I was doing some recycling, and I dropped my pass in with the recycling by accident. When I got to the barriers at the underground, I told them the same thing. Returning at the barriers, I told them the same thing. Getting on the bus going home, I told them the same thing. So some people marveled, you mean you managed to get there and back? And I said, yeah, because when you tell people the truth as it is, and they respect you because you, they will, if you like, they will let you through, or they'll give you what you want because you've respected them by telling them the truth. So, you don't have to come up with stories or anything like that. I know, again, I'm all over the place on this one, but so for me, I'm saying this as me as a black person, whereas people have claimed victimization along the way, the people who have let me off, they're not necessarily black people. In fact, I find black people in authority give me a harder time. White people, male and female, have been very generous to me in situations where I could have got fined, right? So this thing about black trauma, to me, it's a load of garbage. We are all individuals, and if people, it's how people choose to define themselves. It's how, like for me, I'm all about God. I'm all about being God's child. And if we want to look at ourselves as victims of slavery, and I've not had the slavery experience. There's nobody alive on earth who's had the slavery experience. Anybody who is suffering from trauma or anything spilt over from from oppression, as they might choose to call it, if you've not experienced it, you're not suffering from it, it's an excuse. I think I'm going to wind up here now, because I've said plenty, and even if it's disjointed, there's plenty to sort of think about. So I bid you all a good day, and I'll be back when something new and exciting happens. See you later.